Hello, everybody. So the title of my presentation is Caravaggio, Light, Emotion, and the Divine. And today we will be exploring the excellent works of Caravaggio, who was one of the most influential artists of the Baroque period. And the two masterpieces that we'll be diving into are the Calling of St. Matthew and the Supper at Emmaus. Throughout this presentation, I will be exploring how Caravaggio uses light and shadow, also his unique storytelling methods, and how he brings the divine down to earth, making them feel real and relatable, like on the human level. So yeah, all right, let's move on to Caravaggio's era. So Caravaggio was born in 1571, and he spent most of his life in Italy, specifically in Rome. His life ended in 1610, which was a short life, but certainly impactful, as his legacy lasted much longer than the year of his death. Caravaggio worked during the Counter-Reformation, which was a time when the Catholic Church wanted to engage people emotionally with their religious themes. And at this time, art was no longer just for decoration. It was rather used as a tool for sort of spiritual connection and inspiration through the church. And one of the main things that sets Caravaggio apart is his use of chiaroscuro, which is the dramatic play of light and shadow. We can see this technique very clearly in his works, as it's kind of all over his work, which he turns it so the light isn't just there in the painting for a visual effect, but it's rather symbolic. He lights figures in his paintings, not just to make them visible, but rather to show us like who the important people are and where the focus should be. So with that said, let's move on to the Calling of St. Matthew. So here in this painting, we see Christ calling Matthew, who is a tax collector, and Christ is calling him to follow him. And we can see how Caravaggio sets the scene in what seems to be a simple, ordinary, everyday room with no like divine glow or anything like that, but it is the light that speaks in this painting. The beam of light that we see coming in from the right of the painting, which dramatically isolates Matthew, as if the divine is sort of singling him out. And this is what makes the painting so powerful, as Caravaggio takes a moment of spiritual significance and places it in like an ordinary, everyday setting. So, if we get a close-up on Matthew's gesture and Christ's hand, we can see Matthew's expression as he's slightly confused, as he's thinking like, me? Like, is it me that you're calling? And this hesitation that we see from Matthew makes him kind of human, like relatable too. It's almost like he's in disbelief that he's being chosen for such a high calling from Christ. And if we look at Christ's hand, we can see a reference to Michelangelo's creation of Adam, where we can see the outstretched hand of God giving life to Adam. And of course, looking at the lighting again, Matthew's face is fully illuminated, which is highlighting his spiritual awakening. And the others around him are lost in the shadows. This shows how Matthew is the only one being transformed in this painting. So now moving on to the Supper at Emmaus. So looking at this work, we can see the painting capture the moment when Christ reveals himself to two disciples after resurrection. The shock and awe that we see on the disciples' faces as they realize who he is, and that is Christ, is simply amazing. We can see how Caravaggio uses light here, and Christ's hand is brightly illuminated, focused on the bread he is about to break. The disciples, on the other hand, are still processing this miraculous, significant moment, with their emotions shifting from kind of confusion to recognition. And what makes this painting so captivating is the combination of realism and divine revelation. Christ's hand in the light draws our attention to the kind of the most important part of the scene, which is the act of blessing the bread, which symbolizes his like divine authority and divine presence. And as we can see, the disciples are visibly shocked as to how anyone would be when confronted with anything this extraordinary. And the rawness of the emotions that we see makes this moment feel so alive and relatable. So now looking at the a close-up of the disciples' gestures, or the fruit basket, we can see the one of the disciples leaning forward with his arms stretched out as if he's about to sort of jump up in disbelief. And another disciple that we can see is kind of frozen in shock. These gestures are very dramatic as they invite us into the scene. We can feel the astonishment and the joy that they have meeting or recognizing Christ. And if we take a look at the fruit basket, it's right on the edge of the table, kind of threatening to fall, which is a powerful symbol for the fragile aspect of faith. Kind of just like the basket, their belief was sort of on the edge about Christ. And Caravaggio brings that fragile aspect to life in such a subtle but also profound way. Now going into Caravaggio and modern day connections, we can see a photo of a superhero. That's kind of what we can relate it to. The dramatic use of light is to highlight a significant figure in the paintings. So if we think about, like, as we see here, Superman or Batman or anything of that sort, the films use like kind of intense lighting to highlight the moments of tension and on the key characters. The way the light kind of highlights the hero is very much like Caravaggio's approach that we see in the paintings, and specifically the paintings that we're covering today. So moving on to the conclusion, we can see a side-by-side of both these paintings. We can see how Caravaggio used light and shadow not just for the dramatic effect, but to enhance the emotional and spiritual depth of his works. His paintings sort of invite us into these moments of transformation where the sacred and the regular, ordinary humans collide, interact with each other. And we can see even today his legacy lives on in films, video games, superhero movies, as we covered, and the way we tell stories through visuals. It's lived on through all of that. He makes the divine very relatable, with something we can all sort of connect with, and that's what makes his work truly timeless. Thank you.